Hello everyone and welcome to the MMA Take podcast. I want to welcome you all and thank you all for clicking on the first episode of the podcast, whether it's on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher and Spotify. I want to thank you all for giving me your time. And basically what this podcast is all going to be about and what all the podcasts in the future are going to be about is just me giving my perspective on what the fuck's currently going on at MMA. It is a crazy, crazy game and a crazy sport just in general. So it'll be just that guy at the back of the bar, that fucking loud dickhead that thinks he knows everything, that kind of you know perspective on what's currently going on in MMA. But no, it's not going to be too detailed. When I break down the fights, it's just going to be in a very basic manner, not too much. There are people out there who do that much better than I can. I will just be giving you my personal perspective, and you know, just try and give a normal review for whether you're a first time watcher of UFC or MMA in general, or a hardcore fan. And if you're a hardcore fan, I apologise because fucking you probably know more than I do. But I want to thank you all for listening. If you do want to catch us, throw us a tweet, get involved in the podcast. Do go tweet us in the it is at MMA Take Pod, I believe. I don't even know. I might be getting that wrong. How am I getting my own Twitter wrong? Anyway, worst comes to worst, it is in the description. Whether that is whatever you're watching it on or whatever you're listening to this on, it is in the description. Whatever you're listening on, I would appreciate you subscribing, following us, giving us a review. I know it's only the first fucking episode and I haven't really gone into the episode yet, but I appreciate the support. But nevertheless, yeah, what basically is going to go on in these podcasts, they're probably going to go out early at the start of the week. If there's a fight on the weekend, we're going to review the weekend. If there's not, I know, for example, we just had, the date today is the 23rd of April. On the 21st, it was UFC Fight Night 128 in Atlantic City, Lee versus Barboza. So, we're going to break that down, talk about that, what's next, and the basic shit. Then we're going to talk about some news and upcoming fights and what I've been, a lot of shit has been confirmed this past week. So that's kind of a newsy kind of bit. And then that's really it. That's all the podcast is really going to be. But if there wasn't an event on the weekend, I'll be doing what I'd like to see in the future and just different topics. Whether that's just specifying on a certain division and breaking the division down and what I think that division needs next. Whether it's just a topic or of any sort. If you guys have any ideas, feel free to. Obviously, like I said, if you're listening to us on YouTube or watching this on YouTube, feel free to put it down in the comments. I will respond, and I appreciate every feedback that we get. I'd love for you guys to get more involved in the podcast. So obviously, any suggestions or any topics you guys want to talk about, I will be putting them in. Obviously, these podcasts are going to get longer and longer and longer with the more fan interaction that we have. So that is the goal. And yeah, so I suppose enough bullshit for me rambling for the past 4 minutes or however long it's been. I suppose. Apologies. I suppose it's time to just crack on with the breakdown of UFC Fight Night 128, Atlantic City, Edson Barboza versus Kevin Lee. The card as a whole, the prelims were probably more fun than the main card. The main card was okay. There were some big names on there which made it appealing, but the prelims, the shit that happened in the prelims. You had this guy called Dalvalvishvili. His name is fucked. I apologise, mate. I probably have butchered the shit out of that. But this guy, he was going against Simon. First name. It would help if I had the guy's fucking first name. What is Simon's first name? Where are you? So it was this guy from Georgia has the world's toughest name. They are both bantamweights. Dalval Vichy is 7-3. Ricky Simon from the US is 10-1, and it was fucking mental. It was the third round, about the last minute of the third round, Dalvarvish goes for the takedown. He secures the takedown, but Simon grabs a hold of the neck, putting him in a guillotine. As he gets taken down, obviously Dalvarvish is on top. Simon rolls over, gets in full guard. Perfect transaction. I was not expecting that out of Ricky Simon. It was a beautiful transaction, and he was just yanking and cranking on that neck for the whole minute, 50 seconds. I thought that Dalvarvish was gone. He was out, but the ref was there. Obviously Simon's on top, cranking that neck. Dalvarvish is on the bottom. Both his hands are free. He's not fighting the hands. He's just giving the thumbs up to the ref for a good 50 seconds and kicking his knees to show that he's got reaction. Now, this is where it gets a bit fucking weird. So, Simon comes off, and the bell rings, for the end of the fight. The fight's finished. But as soon as Simon gets off, Dalvarvish looks like he's been in fucking outer space. His eyes are not there. He did not look coherent. He did look out of it. Even though for the whole 50 seconds he was kicking his knees and being responsive to the ref. As soon as that crank came off, Dalvarvish looked completely fucking out of it. And actually, it's one of the first times, not one of the first times, but one of the first times in a very, very, very long time I've seen something like this where the fight got called at the end and it got given a submission. Or was it a submission or is that a submission? It was a submission win, and just goddamn, man, like I wasn't expecting that to happen because it was vicious, but UFC nowadays they've got to have their fair share of controversy. And was it controversial? Yes, because personally watching that fight, I thought Dalvarvish was going to win on the scorecard. Anyway, he was an aggressor. It looked like he was actually going to win that fight, but he did look fucking completely out of it at the end of that. And as soon as that bell rang and Simon jumped off, his eyes were fucking. He just didn't look there at all. And then you had Jim Miller versus Dan Hooker, and fucking hell, this lightweight division is scaring me so much. But it's just such a killer division. You had Jim Miller, an absolute legend, and Dan Hooker, coming in and. I think he's on. I want to say he's only had a few fights. It was the first fight of the main card, and Dan Hooker being 16-7, and obviously Jim Miller being 28-11. Hooker just gave fucking Miller this absolute beast of a fucking knee straight on the fucking button, straight on the jaw, completely knocked him out in the first round. I'm sure it got fucking knockout of the night because Jesus Christ, that was just the cleanest knee I've ever seen. It was fan-fucking-tastic. It was bang on money. And Dan Hooker getting a big win over Jim Miller, and then obviously at the end of the fight, Paul Felder was on commentary doing a fantastic job, and he came up and did the post-fight interview with Hooker, and he asked Hooker who would he want next, and he goes, "Oh, well, yourself and fucking UFC. Book that fight now." After seeing that fight against Dan Hooker, it's just you can tell the kind of style that he's got. Jim Miller was the perfect partner for him. Jim Miller obviously being a bit older, but they're both going to stand and bang. And I trust me, if they do Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker, that can happily jump on a main card anywhere. Fucking, I don't know when, because all these next UFCs are absolutely stacked, but I'd love to see that fight in the future, 100%. And the next fight was Aljamain Sterling beating Brett Johns in a unanimous decision, I believe. It was a unanimous decision. What to say about this fight? I tell you one thing. If anybody needed a win on this card, it was 100% Aljo Sterling. He really, really, really did need a win, and I believe that was Brett Johns' first loss. I want to say that was his first loss, or maybe second. I'm sure he's over. Oh no, yeah, he was 15-0, so it was his first loss. But I don't want to say outclassed, but he was, Aljamain Sterling was just the aggressor the whole time. I think it was like 2 or 3 takedowns. He tried a shitload, got 3 though. He was just even along the cage in the clinch position. Aljo was just controlling the whole fight. He was outstriking him. He was just slicker, faster, and more precise. And Aljo needed that win, especially after that last loss. Like I said, if anybody really needed to get a win in this fight card, it was 100% Aljo. After that loss to Marlon Morales at the end of, I believe, December last year, and obviously Morales going to face Jimmy Rivera in a fight night in a few months, I believe, or in 2 or 3 months. So, if Aljo had won that fight, he would have been straight in there. Aljo just, if you look at his last 5 fights in the UFC, it was a loss to Rafael Santos, which is, no shame in that. He beat Augusto Mendes, which is a fantastic win. He goes and beats Renan Barão. Don't get me wrong, got a bit of an older Renan Barão, but a win's a win nevertheless. Loses to Marlon Moraes, but, Marlon Moraes is just a fucking tank. He looks like a pit bull at that weight, and him and Jimmy Rivera is going to be a hell of a fight. And then obviously, Aljo now picking up the win against Brett Johns. He did need this win. And then at the end of the fight, calls out Dominic Cruz, and fucking hell, what a fight. I'm a massive Dominic Cruz fan, so I'm going to be biased as shit, but, I'd want to see Dominic Cruz back, obviously, and I feel like, with TJ, TJ and Cody booked for August, I believe, at UFC 227, or maybe 228, one of the fucking two. This would be a decent. There's no one really else in the bantamweight division. Okay, bar Jimmy Rivera and Marlon Morales. I suppose if you want to get anyone in line, it would make sense for, Aljo and Dominic to have a fight, and then whoever loses out of TJ and Garbrandt in August, you put the winner of Aljo and Dominic against the loser of that title fight, and then obviously the Jimmy Rivera and Marlon Morales fight. Whoever wins that will go face the winner of the fucking TJ or Garbrandt. So for example, if TJ wins the second fight against Garbrandt in August, it would be TJ versus the winner of Morales or Jimmy Rivera, and then Garbrandt would face either Cody or Aljamain Sterling. And just imagine if, fucking Dominic Cruz came back, gets that rematch against Cody Garbrandt, if Cody Garbrandt was to lose the title fight, and then go on to go face TJ for the 3rd time in a, I believe in a rubber match. So fucking hell, just the potential in the bantamweight division is nice, but, it's not always the most fun division to watch, but there are some very, very, very big players in that division, and with the likes of, having the Dana White Contender Series and stuff like that, all that shit's just going to help make it bigger. Anyway, so the next fight being David Branch versus Thiago Santos, and this surprised me. It was a knockout victory for David Branch. A beautiful, beautiful, beautiful overhand right. Connected straight on Thiago Santos' jaw in the first round. I think it was like 2.5 minutes into the first round, midway through. But the interesting thing is that, Thiago Santos was the aggressor in this fight. He threw so many leg kicks to David Branch, and only in a case of, in a minute and a half, you could see, David Branch's leg looking a bit sore. He threw so many leg kicks, and, if that fight had have continued a fair few distance, Thiago Santos was looking at the aggressor, even in a couple of the combinations with, him throwing just a simple 1-2s, and then a hook, or a simple 1-2, and then the uppercut. Everything was landing. It seemed like David Branch was either a bit hesitant after that Luke Rockhold loss, but nevertheless, it wasn't even that long ago either, but he just looked a bit, when I was watching it live, I was thinking, he needs to look at, he's a big physical presence in World Series of Fighting where he was before. He was an absolute beast. He was blazing past 3 people, so I don't understand why he wasn't doing that against Thiago Santos. And, while he's waiting there, his lead leg was just getting absolutely chewed up by Thiago Santos. But then all of a sudden, Branch starts to work, a bit closer, getting a bit closer. He has that boxer style, and then all of a sudden just looping in with a beautiful overhand right and just connects straight on Thiago Santos' jaw. Wasn't expecting that, to be fair. David Branch actually going into the fight as an underdog, coming out as a knockout victory in the first round. Beautiful for him, and I believe he got performance of the night as well. So fair play to him. And what's next for fucking Branch? Honestly, that's the middleweight. The middleweights are just one. I don't trust the UFC rankings. I think they're absolute bullshit. But if we just look at middleweights now, Branch. Obviously, this is I'm looking at this on the Monday, so Monday morning. So obviously, it hasn't been updated as just yet. But David Brandt's been eighth in the division. Is he gonna go up when you've got Brunson, Bisping, Kevin Gastelum, Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, Jacare Souza, Romeo, and obviously Whittaker being your champion. Luke Rockhold, I don't want to say he's in a fight. I don't think he's in a fight, obviously, but he's already faced him before. I would like to see Luke Rockhold and fucking Chris Weidman go back at it, for God's sake. Come on, we need that fight. The build up to that fight was fantastic. Obviously, we got robbed of the second one, but no worries when you had Mike Bisping jumping in at UFC 199 to win the middleweight belt. But obviously that was meant to be Chris Weidman getting his rematch against Luke Rockhold. You got Kevin Gastelum versus Jacare in the next UFC event, which is UFC 224, which I believe is on the 12th of May or something like that. So a bit of a distance to go. I just don't know who they would give him to. Maybe Brad Tavares, but obviously he's only just. Brad Tavares is at 10th, so to be fair, that wouldn't be a bad matchup there with him and Branch. But even Derek Brunson and David Branch, Brunson's 7th, Branch is 8th, just to get one of the contenders out of the way. I can see that fight being happening and see that being an absolute barn burner. Branch not having the best of success at the moment. He's come off a lot of big losses. To I believe it was Machida and Whittaker. So Branch is looking. Brunson's definitely looking for a fight to come back, and I think him and Branch could be an absolute fucking barn burner. And I think they should go ahead and do that on next. And then next we had Justin Willis versus Chase Sherman. Now, this one finished as a decision win for Justin Willis, and personally, I don't know. Purely, I would have 100% Chase won that last round, right? 100% Chase won that last round, but I'm just trying to figure out right now, was it a unanimous decision, or if it was a split decision? And I want to say it was a unanimous. And if it was, that's fucking shambles, to be fair. But let's have a look. Yeah, Justin Willis defeats Chase Sherman via unanimous decision. 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. You know what? That does seem... like I said, Chase definitely won that last round. Hence why you give it, 29-28. Justin Willis was definitely the aggressor in the first round, but it's the same old story with these bigger heavyweights. Obviously Justin Willis, I'm pretty sure, had to even cut weight to get into the heavyweight bracket of 265. So Justin Willis is a big fucking guy. They did look pretty even, to be fair. They both were, you had Chase Sherman working in close, getting the elbow in, and he had a lot of clinch work and control around the cage. But again, that was a lot in the in that last round, and I just want to say purely off activity, maybe Justin Willis probably did sneak those first 2 rounds, but Chase definitely did enough in the second to kind of warrant that. But with all 3 judges going the same, you can't really moan. So a new heavyweight contender, everyone thought that Chase Sherman would be the next big name in the heavyweight division. Sadly not, but with Justin Willis being on, but both of them being unranked, I don't really see them. I don't really see Chase Sherman, obviously, of course not, but I don't really see Justin Willis. I didn't really know much about the guy before going into this fight. It's my first time actually hearing of him. He's only 7-1. And again, like just looking at his past fights, really, no one that really sticks out. So I wouldn't even know who to suggest next. Just another unranked opponent. But for Chase Sherman, one person that, to be fair, if anything would make sense, it was UFC Glendale last week, and you had Arjun Singh Buller versus oh god, what was that guy's name? Adam Wisorek. Wisorek, yeah. He won with the fucking omoplata, gorgeous omoplata in the second round. And I just think you just do something very simple. You go Adam and Justin Willis, and then Arjun Buller versus Chase Sherman. The losers go against each other, and the winners of those two fights go each other. And then whoever wins that fight can go for a ranked opponent. But heavyweight it's just not a very good. You're looking at really out of the top 6 or 7, maybe 8. You're not really looking at anyone big, but that's just the heavyweights, isn't it? The UFC need some fucking heavyweights, to say that, for sure. And then next we had the co-main event being Frankie Edgar versus Cub Swanson. Fantastic fight, just as great as you want it to be. Frankie being Frankie Edgar, coming off of that, his first ever knockout or first ever stoppage loss, in his career against come on, why am I blanking on Brian Ortega? There we go, Brian Ortega. Only in February, a late February too. So, really a month off, and then 2 months, a month. It was going into this fight. I thought it would be what happened to Bisping Part 2. Bisping lost the belt to GSP, and I went like a few weeks later and faced Kevin Gastelum, and I felt that was going to be the same. Cub Swanson. Both these guys coming off of losses to Brian Ortega. But I honestly thought Cub, he had a bit more time to rest and stuff, but Frankie being fucking the beast that he is, man. Him coming off that first loss, first knockout loss. Sorry, you just saw the same Frankie Edgar. The Frankie Edgar that we used to. One thing I do want to point out though, Cub Swanson's takedown defense in this fight was fantastic. 3 rounds was perfect for both of these men, especially Edgar coming up with the quick turnaround. But both Frankie Edgar going for about 8 or 9 takedowns and not even landing one, which is incredible. When you compare their first fight, Cub Swanson was the reason that Cub lost that first fight. He just got taken down and fucking mauled on the floor, and you could tell that Cub has evolved, which is Cub's been one of the standouts in the 145 division. Unfortunate to lose this. And who would I give him next? I'd love to see him and Stevens, but Stevens is pushing for a title. So maybe Cub and Jeremy Stevens might make a bit more sense, but there are the featherweight is a fantastic division, and there's no word on. I don't know if Jose Aldo is booked in a fight upcoming, or I'm sure I've heard inklings that he is, but I'm sure it's him and Stevens. Let me double check that. I'm sure it's Aldo versus Stevens, or am I just making this up? I'm sure that has been booked. Or have I just ruined one of my current events? No, I haven't. Jose Aldo versus Jeremy Stevens in the works for UFC Singapore, which is June 17th. Okay, so fair play. So, that takes both of them out the title picture. So, yeah, it would make sense for Cub and Josh Emmett to go at each other, and obviously Frankie Edgar to get the. I think, Frankie Edgar still deserves a title shot. He went on such a blaze, lost to a young stud in Brian Ortega, but I think, with that Brian Ortega, Max Holloway fight just been confirmed that we will talk about a bit more later on. With that fight being confirmed, it just makes sense for whoever wins that fight just to, give Frankie Edgar the title shot after that. So, I would like to see that, to be fair. I think Frankie deserved it. And yeah, it would just be nice. And then obviously finishing up with the main event. Edson Barboza versus Kevin Lee, and you could just tell that Kevin Lee did, looked at that Khabib fight when Khabib fought Edson Barboza and went, you know what, Edson looks so out of sorts when he gets taken down. He just looks like a fish out of water. He looks completely lost. So personally, I think, with those two, especially with that fight, just showing that he had no ground game at all. Kevin Lee, it just made sense for Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee's a fantastic wrestler. He took down fucking Tony Ferguson with a staph infection. He can manage perfectly fine, and he did a great job, to be fair. Just utilizing the takedown, and then those elbows and those punches straight to the face every time. That ground and pound was vital for Kevin Lee, and that's how he won the fight. Well, kind of. Well, he won the fight by doctor stoppage in the 5th round, but due to just a fucking absolute barrage of elbows and punches to, I think it was Barboza's right eye, and it was just completely shut. Massive gash on top of it. Doctor stoppage, and to be fair, I didn't really have a problem with that because Lee was winning that fight regardless. He was, absolutely dominating that fight. Don't get me wrong, Edson Barboza is Edson Barboza, and he did land that amazing wheel kick earlier on the fight, and it gave Kevin Lee absolute Bambi on ice legs. His legs were wobbling all over the place. But, if you watch that clip back, as soon as that wheel kick lands, Kevin Lee's legs basically give out, but he goes straight for the double leg takedown. He goes straight in. While having no legs, he goes straight in and goes for the takedown. So it just showed that, and he got it, I believe, once he was recovering up in that position. He landed the takedown. So, deserved winner, obviously. Obviously, what's next for him? Fucking hell, this lightweight division is ridiculous. And I did want to talk about this in a bit of depth, in which we're about to go in right now. Fucking hell, lightweight. Obviously, there's been a lot of shit going on. With that last pay-per-view, it was a pay-per-view, obviously, and the whole Tony Ferguson pulling out, and then Conor McGregor throwing dollies at fucking buses, and Michael Chiesa versus Pettis getting cancelled and things like that. But just looking in this past month, we had the main event of Ally Quinta versus Khabib for the belt, for the lightweight belt. There's lightweights again. Then we had UFC Glendale, Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje, lightweights. And then last night, and then the last UFC, Edson Barboza versus Kevin Lee. Again, lightweights. It's just showing that the strength in this lightweight division is fucking phenomenal. That top 15 is as strong as any. There's always that where you can. There's always that I'm completely lost for words, but there's always that comparison to the welterweight division where saying that no, that's the best division, but personally that lightweight division is just full of killers. Khabib, Conor, Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barboza, Kevin Lee, Justin Gaethje, Nate Diaz when he comes back, Ally Quinta, James Vick, fantastic, Michael Chiesa, Anthony Pettis, Paul Felder, Olivier Aubin Mercier, who fought earlier in the month as well. This division is stacked, and it is just what it needed after, Conor McGregor holding up this belt for so fucking long. I believe it's like 500 and so days or something ridiculous like that. Finally him losing that belt. We've got a definite champion. We've got Tony Ferguson, who's out for a while. Conor McGregor with all the shit that he's been going through. He's gonna be out for a while. You got Dustin Poirier that just came off that massive, basically fight of the year candidate after Justin Gaethje. What a fucking win that was. Kevin Lee, with the win over Barboza. And obviously Eddie Alvarez is there too. Personally, I would probably go. Khabib came out with a tweet, and this is what the tweet that I wanted to read out. If I just quickly jump on Instagram, I had it saved. So we had Khabib come out with a tweet on Sunday night, saying the lightweight division is the most competitive division in the UFC. At this moment, the atmosphere is very heated. There's Conor, Tony, Poirier, Lee, and Alvarez. All of them are good fight. When any of these guys would be very interesting and competitive. Jesus Christ, Khabib's English is fucking shocking at times, man. But nevertheless, he does try. He's a beast. I don't want to touch him with shit because he's a monster. I never choose opponent. Fought with any fighter who was offered to fight, and I'm not going to change that. I'm coming back in November, December time to defend my belt. Whoever at UFC decide to fight with me, I'll sign. Now, this is important. Obviously, Khabib being a Muslim, they celebrate Ramadan, and obviously, they deplete their bodies. They're not allowed to eat for, a certain time during the day, and it's not, viable conditions to be fighting. So it makes a lot of sense. He's gonna be out till November, December time, which is, it's only be April now. It just makes sense to put all these guys against each other. We had the Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier fight last year, with the controversial decision with the knee to the head, but it was so obvious that, Dustin Poirier was winning that fight, and Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier both coming off wins. Both of their last wins, I believe, were from Justin Gaethje. Eddie Alvarez has been out of competition for a while. So it makes a lot of sense to put those guys back together. Headline of UFC Fight Night, even put that in a pay-per-view main card would be fantastic. Put those two against each other. Tony Ferguson, you're looking at least next year. At least next year. Taking the fucking ACL off your bone is not a nice injury. Conor McGregor, who fucking knows how long he's going to be out for? So, you got three people calling Khabib's name who are active at the moment, that being Lee, Poirier, and Alvarez. The only legit thing I can think of saying is put Eddie Alvarez and Justin Poirier together. Whoever wins that fight, whoever wins the fight between Eddie Alvarez and Dustin Poirier, will go on to face Khabib at the end of the year. If Tony Ferguson and Conor McGregor cannot fight, if Conor McGregor or Tony Ferguson can fight Khabib in November, December time, obviously make that fight. But then it would make sense, personally, I would say, well, Dustin and Eddie have already fought, and that was a no contest, but it was clear who was winning that fight. That was Dustin Poirier's fight all day. Obviously all day. Personally, what I would do, I'd put Kevin Lee versus Eddie Alvarez together. Whoever wins that fight faces Poirier. So give Poirier a break. He's come off wars against fucking he's had I'm trying to think who he's fought recently. He's had some absolute beasts in his way. Obviously he just beat Gaethje, he just beat Anthony Pettis, the no contest to fucking Eddie Alvarez, and then he also beat Jim Miller in the early stage of 2017 as well. So that was like 3 fights in 2017. The last fight in November 2017, and then back in April 2018. give him a break and put him, just let him put him on the back burner, and then give Kevin Lee and Eddie Alvarez a fight. Whoever wins that will face Dustin Poirier. If Conor McGregor or Tony Ferguson can face Khabib in the November-December card. If not, if both Conor McGregor and Tony Ferguson cannot fight, you do Dustin Poirier, you do Eddie Alvarez Part 2, but before that, with enough time for them to prepare for that November fight, you do that fight. Whoever wins that fight, fights Khabib. That is how it has to be done. This fucking division is, you could go a million ways, but personally, I think if it makes a lot of sense. If you're gonna do that, then just fucking do that, I suppose. So that was the review of UFC Fight Night 129. That was 28. Sorry, that was a bit of a fucking, sidetracked. Got a bit sidetracked at the end, but nevertheless, got the review over and done with now. For the last couple 5 or so minutes, we're just gonna go through some fights in the past week that have been confirmed and some news stories, but all of the news stories that I've got just concern upcoming fights that have been made. So, first, a fight cancellation. I believe it was UFC Chile. First, earlier in the year, I believe it was Volkan Ozdemir versus Shogun, which is a co-main event of the UFC Chile card. Got cancelled purely because Volkan Ozdemir couldn't get a visa to go to Chile. I want to say it's related to the whole he had that bar fight early in, last year with his girl. He was with the girlfriend and some guys were talking to her or some bullshit like that, and he got into a massive bar fight and ended up getting arrested. So potentially that was the reason he couldn't go to Chile. So that fight got cancelled, and now the main event of that UFC Chile card was going to be Ponzinibbio versus Kamaru Usman, and Ponzinibbio had to pull out of the fight, I believe, due to I want to say it was due to a hand injury. So no replacement has been finalized yet for Kamaru Usman, but it does say here that Kamaru Usman is willing to stay on the card only if it is against a ranked opponent. If it is not against a ranked opponent, he's not interested at all. And fucking hell, well, you lose your two main interests to go to. The whole reason they were going to UFC Chile was their main attraction is Santiago Ponzinibbio, who's originally from Argentina, but both being South America, regions close to each other. It was meant to be his event, and him pulling out, he's got in. I don't really see anyone else in the welterweight division taking that fight against Kamaru Usman. People are dodging him anyway. I'm just looking at the division now. You got Donald Cerrone versus Leon Edwards. That's already booked. Has Neil Magny got a fight? I'm not sure. You know what? Jorge Masvidal hasn't got a fight. Robbie Lawler hasn't got a fight. Are they gonna go out to fucking Chile on a fight night and go face fucking Kamaru Usman? I highly doubt it. Personally, I do highly doubt it, but it's fucking one of those things, I suppose. Next is a fight that has been announced, and that is Sage Northcutt will be making his return to the octagon against Zach the Barbarian Otto in UFC Boss on the 14th of July. So believe it or not, this is the first fight that Sage Northcutt will be having after losing to Mickey Gall back in December 2016. That, oh my god, it seems a madness that Sage Northcutt hasn't fought for a year, but it makes a lot of sense, when you're having that first loss in the UFC, when you're at such a young age as well. It does make sense to take a year off and just get better. And you saw him going, training with Woodley, he's currently training with Team Alpha Male. He's gone to a lot of different places, picked up a lot of different things. And I feel like when he comes back, he will be a different fighter, which is fantastic anyway. He's got the potential to potentially be a champion in the future. But, what he's done, taking the year off, gone to lift off I can't even talk. Lots of different camps, got a lot of advice, and hopefully it'll work out for him. Next we have fucking hell. I need to go through this card in full because it is absolutely fucking ridiculous. UFC 226, which is not UFC fight, International Fight Week. Fucking hell, Yancy Medeiros versus Mike Perry. Holy shit. What a fight that is going to be. Obviously, Medeiros, losing to Donald Cerrone after going against, had that amazing fight against Cowboy Oliveira, the Brazilian cowboy, and then facing Donald Cerrone and then losing to Donald Cerrone. So, coming off a loss, facing Perry, and obviously Perry coming off that loss to Max Griffin. What a fantastic fight. To put both of these fighters, it is going to be a scrap. You're definitely looking at a potential Fight of the Year candidate. Jesus Christ, I cannot fucking wait. Again, for UFC 226, you have Uriah Hall versus Paulo Costa. And if you remember, Costa was he's 11-0. He's undefeated, and I believe he was the one that battered the absolute piss out of Johnny Hendricks maybe a year ago or in the past year or so. Just that absolute vicious beatdown of Hendricks. That was Paulo Costa. It looks like he should be a fucking model. Versus Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall with a record of 13-8. What a fantastic fight to have for starters. But geez, that's a tough matchup for Uriah Hall. Personally, fair play for him to taking it, but that's not going to be an easy fight for him because this Paulo Costa kid is a fucking beast. Next we have UFC Hamburg on July 22nd. I believe it hasn't been confirmed whether it's the main event or not. But it is Marcin Tybura versus Stefan Struve. Obviously, Tybura coming off that loss to Radum and Derek Lewis. And Struve that has just lost to Volkov and now Arlovski. What a great heavyweight fight. That is, two fantastic heavyweights going at each other. Tybura ranked 8th and Stefan Struve ranked 11. What a fight that's going to be in Hamburg. And then also in Hamburg, it was the rescheduling of Volkan Ozdemir versus Mauricio Shogun Rua, which, as scary as this sounds, yeah, I was doing some research, and if Shogun was to beat Volkan Ozdemir, right, in the light heavyweight division, he would have the longest win streak in the light heavyweight division. With Volkan Ozdemir being ranked 2nd and Shogun being ranked 7th, obviously a win over if Shogun wins that fight, he's basically going to get a fucking title shot. Shogun is about 45 years old now. What the fuck? Like, Jesus, what kind of a year are we having where in the light heavyweight division, if Shogun, who beats Volkan Ozdemir, which could fucking happen, he's going to get a title shot over people like Alexander Gustafsson. For God's sake, give that guy a title shot, please. Come on now. And we have 2 more fights that have been announced for 226. And Jesus, I'm not even going to go into these too much because fucking hell. Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis. I've been waiting for this fight for so goddamn long. And now that it's finally here, I fucking cannot wait. This fight is going to be fucking fantastic. I'm looking forward to this fight so much. It is going to be scary. It is going to be scary. It is going to be fucked. I cannot wait. And then the next one is for the UFC Featherweight Championship. Max Holloway, your champion, versus the number 1 contender, Brian Ortega. Holy piss and balls. I cannot wait for this fight. I cannot wait for this card. Now, I know that was a lot. That was 1, 2, 3, 4. That was 4 announcements for UFC 226. Now, I really do want to break that card down into real detail. And I know it's a bit early yet, but I'm gonna be my next podcast will be next Monday or next Tuesday. Um, those that podcast is gonna be basically all about the upcoming what's coming next, because obviously there's no fights this weekend. Um, so normally I'd be previewing the fights or and then reviewing the fights. But obviously I can't be fucking doing that because there is no fight. So I'll be going in depth and just what's coming up in UFC having this big year of UFC 25 years of the UFC. So we'll be looking back at the first quarter of the year and how that's gone, and then looking at the next quarter of the year, um, and all in all, kind of recapping their how their first half of this big 25th year anniversary of the UFC is gonna go, because at the start of the year that was the whole thing. It is UFC 25th birthday. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be stacked cards, which to be fair we have had some absolute stacked pay-per-view cards. It's just we've been unlucky due to fighters falling out, fighters getting injury, dollies getting thrown at fucking buses and bullshit like that. But yeah, so next week's podcast is all gonna be about that. And if there's anything that you guys wanna talk about, I can make a conversation in the comments below. Throw me a tweet at the MMA pod. It's in the description of wherever you're listening to this or wherever you're watching this. It will be in the description. Go follow us on there. Obviously, whenever I post a new video to YouTube on YouTube, there'll be a bit more content. Obviously the podcast will be running once a week, but on YouTube it will be like the breaking news, breaking that down. Small videos like that. So go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, that'll be in the description of wherever you're listening, or even if you're watching on YouTube. Please do subscribe. Please give us a like. If you enjoyed it, rate it. 5-star review. Whatever you're listening to us on, give us a review. Give us some feedback. Give us some comments on what you want to see and what you want to see me discuss next week. But yeah, next week's podcast will be, reviewing the first quarter of the year, looking at the next quarter of the year, and seeing how UFC are going, and yeah. So this has been the MMA Take Podcast, episode 1. Is in the books, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for listening. I appreciate you going for however many minutes it's gone. I've been rambling for fucking too long, but I really do appreciate you lot, listening this far, and just get in contact, get involved. I'd love for people to get involved, and yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed the show, and I'll catch you all next week. Thank you very much. Cheers.